Alright, here's what's going on today. Got 3 videos to film. I don't have a lot of time. I was going to do them this morning, but I got interrupted from work. So, let's talk about some stuff. And this is going to be some topics from Hike to Hunt. Not necessarily about Hike to Hunt as an event, but just some things that happened surrounding it. So we're at 80 yards right now, and I do not have any sort of target. Well, I have a target, but I don't have it marked with anything to aim at, so I'm just going to aim at the center. 79. Perfect. Okay, so first topic. Let's talk about equipment real quick and equipment failures. Equipment failures, that's the word I was looking for. I'm always wary about equipment failures. I'm sure everybody else is too, but especially during very large or vast changes in variables such as temperature, pressure, elevation, stuff like that. I've worked with metals and materials long enough that I know when things are going to expand and contract, especially when it comes to those variables that I mentioned and going into basically a different climate. I'll give you the background. So I live in an area of Arizona where it is about 150 feet above sea level. So in the summertime, it gets to be triple digits at around 10 a.m. And so Hike to Hunt was in July. So peak time of 110 degrees during the daytime. That's where my bow and all of my equipment mainly stay at. That temperature, obviously accounting into the night and stuff like that, but humidity, stuff like that. It's very dry here. As you can see, it's a fucking desert. So it stays there year round. Nothing really changes. Obviously changes during the winter a little bit, but there's nothing like, huge going on. It happens gradually, which stuff can still come loose and things like that, but not as much as what happened on Hike to Hunt. Hike to Hunt was in Flagstaff, and that is, as near as makes no difference, 7,000 feet above sea level, especially where I was at. I was at a little bit higher than where Flagstaff is. Not on top of a mountain or anything, but Flagstaff is at, about 6,900 and some feet. I was probably at 7,000. So it was also raining pretty much every day, which increased the humidity by quite a bit. And when you go from 150 feet above sea level, 100 degrees, super dry, low humidity, high temperature, to 7,000 feet, high of 72, if that, high humidity, and, high elevation or whatever, in the matter of 6 hours, that's going to affect your equipment in some way, shape, or form. And like I said, I've had stuff on my cams come loose, like these that govern how long my draw length is. That was kind of a scary one because I got it back and basically it went from a back wall to and it clicked. It was really weird. I thought my bow was broken, and that was actually right after I bought it. So I took it back and I was like, did I just break my bow? I I'm so scared right now. And they went, no, you're fine. We just need to tighten these down. Didn't do anything to it. Sometimes these come loose. It is what it is. Put some Loctite on it. You'll be fine. So I've had that come loose. Obviously, I've never had my rest come loose. I've never had my sight come loose, but I've had like some of this come loose, and obviously this thing on the Spot Hogg, if it gets cold, this becomes very, very difficult to turn. Once you get into high heat, it becomes very easy to turn. Those gears in there loosen up and stuff like that, and they get to turning pretty well. I've had the stabilizer mount come loose. It's not a huge deal, but it does make getting the actual stabilizer off, because there's a bolt inside of here. So when that comes loose, this just spins freely, and so you can't really get the stabilizer off, even if it has a quick detach. There's the bolt up in there. I don't know if you can see that, but so when that bolt gets loose, it becomes a problem. Not too big of an issue, but on bearing all that in mind, I'm very wary when I get into situations where I'm changing that much that quickly. So the entire weekend, I was terrified that my bow was going to come out of tune, my strings were going to stretch or contract, something was going to come loose on the cam, any one of those things. But actually, it was my release. This is the Tanjent. I've done a review on it. So if you want to see me ramble on about it, it will be in this corner right there. I will tag it. It's a really good release. I really like it. I wish it wasn't gold, but I wish it was one of those white ones, or in some other form of Cerakote, but it is what it is. It's very comfortable for me. I love it. I have switched it to basically my main release, and I haven't had any issues with it. The one thing that I knew I was probably going to have an issue with it, to be fair, are things that you can't really do anything about. For instance, there is a rubber band up in this hinge right here that hooks onto the hook. I hope you can see that. And gets the hook to return after every shot. Obviously, that rubber band is going to wear out. That's going to be even affected by all of those variables, as I mentioned, even more so, because it's not metal. It's very prone to weather damage, stuff like that. That broke, but honestly, it was getting time to change that anyways. They give you extra rubber bands. It's not an issue, and it doesn't affect the release at all in terms of its function. It's just a little bit annoying to have to return the hook yourself. Not a big deal. It is what it is. It's a design thing that either you have the magnet there, or you have the rubber band, or you do without of it. This is what it is. I'm not really mad about that. It's just one of those things that if you're going on a long hunt, just replace it. It took me probably about 10 minutes to replace it, but that's just because I have big fat sausage fingers, and I was having a hard time getting this back on there. But if you go on a hunt, something like that, just change it beforehand. It doesn't take you very much time. It's part of that. Your release, the rubber band probably will not break on your hunt. If you go for 6 months without replacing it, it may break. Anyways, getting off on a tangent, a little bit too much on that. The other thing that I thought might happen eventually is this screw coming loose. And it is pretty much one of the only screws on here. This screw can come off. this screw, and then the 2 set screws that go in there. But those really, I don't foresee those being an issue at really any point. This screw came loose, and I'd never had any issues with it until Hike to Hunt. And it's actually a pretty interesting story. I got up to Hike to Hunt. My first day there, we went on the Sitka course, which is a massacre. It was super difficult. I'll leave that for another video, but we sort of got backed up at the beginning. I was one of the first groups to start. And I got with a group and I said, hey guys, can I shoot with you? And they were like, yeah, no problem. And then I basically just stayed with them the entire weekend in terms of shooting. We coordinated stuff like that. Really great people to shoot with. But when we got backed up and bunched up on the course, it just happens naturally. We started to talk to some of the other groups. I was the only one besides one other person in the, that we could even see, that was using anything but like a thumb button or an index. And the guy told me, a guy in a group behind us told me, he's like, hey man, check your screw on your hinge, because mine came loose the other day and I punched myself in the face. And I was like, that's a good tip. So I checked it real quick and it was backed out like it is now. Now that screw's not going to come out right now like that. I'm not in any danger right now, but I was like, oh shit, I've never seen that loose the entire time I've had it. The entire time. I've had this thing for like 6 months. So I borrowed a screwdriver or a knife from somebody and I twisted in there and locked it down, and I was like, well, crisis averted, we're fine, we're good to go. I went through that entire day, and then in the evening of that day, I was lining up on a target, and it was a pretty easy target. We went to the Reinhardt course after the Sitka course, and it was much easier. Better confidence builder, larger targets. It was really fun, actually. But I was lining up on a target, and I got to about right here and pulled back, and I punched myself in the face. Here is the video of this. It's hilarious. I think it's hilarious. You can laugh at it. I don't care. I thought it was funny in the moment, but I was lucky that one of the other guys helped me film on that, and he got it in glorious slow motion. You can it captured my reaction of utter bewilderment when I punched myself in the face. Okay, here's what happened on that. I didn't know what happened. I was terrified that my bow had blown up on me, and I didn't know what to look at first. I didn't know, because I dropped my bow, and I didn't know what to look at first. My release, as in, what the hell just happened, or my bow, as in, oh my god, my bow hit the ground, is it broken? And then, of course, I hit myself square in the jaw right here. So I picked up my bow, and nothing had happened. I mean, like, I've dropped this thing before, and it was fine. Nothing was wrong with it. I tapped it, shook it, silent. Nothing's loose on it. So then I checked my release, and this screw, which is flathead, had backed almost all the way out, and this actual hood that houses the hinge, or the hook, was off center and just completely off of the moon, and that's what caused it to basically come off. Now the good thing was that it pretty much stayed on there. It was hanging on by literally a thread of the screw, but it didn't go flying off somewhere. It was off, but it was still hanging on by a tiny screw thread. So it had obviously come loose from all the shots, and it came loose in less than 24 hours after I had really less than like 8 hours after I had screwed it down pretty tight that morning. So that made me doubly worried about all of my equipment, because that's just how fast that screw came out of there. And it's actually a really long thread. I mean, it must have been coming loose at a pretty rapid rate in order to do that. I guess once it's loose, you have to worry about the pivot of the hood actually contributing to it coming off and unscrewing it. But anyways, the fix to this is just to put a tiny dab of, what is it, some of the blue Loctite, the stuff that will, like, it's basically just a mild adhesive that will keep your threads in place, but you can knock it loose by putting enough pressure on the twist. So it's the least adhesive of the Loctites. You can do that with all of your screws and stuff like that if you're worried about them coming loose. I've thought about it, but honestly, I haven't really had an issue with my equipment. But it's one of those things where if it happens on a hunt where you don't have any equipment there to fix it, or you do have equipment there to fix it, but in the process of it coming loose, it knocked your bow out of tune, that's a problem. And it's just something to be aware of when you make those massive swinging changes in variables like temperature, ambient pressure, altitude, humidity, stuff like that. So, nothing came loose on my bow. I went around and made sure to check all the screws to make sure, and bolts to make sure that they're down tight, and they are. The only thing that's been an issue is this screw now comes loose very, very easily. So I'm just going to get some Loctite and put a dab on the end of it, and then I should be good to go, because I don't really mess with this thing anyways. I pretty much set it and forget it, and that's pretty much how I roll with my hinge. I like it that way, and it keeps me consistent. So anyways, if you're gonna go on a trip, whether it be hunting, one of these 3D archery shoots, something where you're going to be making those massive changes, it might be worth it to put some Loctite on all of your bolts that you don't want coming loose, to make sure that they stay in place and they don't knock your bow out of tune. But other than that, it went really well. I'm really glad that nothing else on my bow came loose, because it's definitely terrifying for that to happen. And one of the guys that I was shooting with on that archery hunt had to go into town to get his bow retuned. I don't know if it's because of that huge temperature change. He made pretty much the same. He doesn't live near me, but where he normally lives is a similar climate, and he was going all the way up to Flagstaff for the shoot. So I wouldn't go as far as to blame that on his bow getting out of tune or anything like that. It could just be a fluke thing, or maybe it wasn't tuned properly in the first place. I don't know. But that shit seems to happen. And I saw more than one person up there who went to the practice range and was pulling their hair out because their bow was suddenly out of tune. Now, whether that's because they get up into a real world environment and then they can't shoot for shit, Lord knows I went up there and felt like a complete stooge on the Sitka course. But that's just because it was so unbelievably difficult. It wasn't because my bow was out of tune, because I sucked. So I saw a lot of people in the practice range who were tearing their hair out because they were having serious issues with their bows, like having having their bows shoot, you know, however many 6-7 inches to the right, or they were shooting super low. I don't know. I don't know if that's what happens, but I would not be surprised, especially if you put some brand new strings on there that haven't really been pre-stretched, and you go into an environment where you change altitudes by extreme measures, and it just makes your strings, it knocks your strings out of tune. I don't know, but it is something to be aware of, and I hope that you all check your shit before you go up into the mountains and end up with a bow out of tune and wonder why you missed an animal a foot to the right or something like that. So anyways, you learn something new every day, and it's just one of those things that you have to constantly keep checking your equipment to make sure that it is properly tuned and you're preparing for shit like that. So that's all for this video. Let's shoot a couple more shots and see where we're hitting. Kind of loud. Will I have a malfunction with my bow on camera? Let's see. Right on center. I didn't hear the other one hit. I don't know if that's just a soft part of the target down there or whether it missed. I can't imagine it missed because it's a big target and I'm not that bad. Let's go check it out. Take the whole tripod. I think it's also worth mentioning in this video that a lot of other people like to tinker with their bows and their setups. I don't like to do that. I used to. Just because it gave me peace of mind to like constantly be checking everything and stuff like that. I just found out that the more I tinkered with it, the less reliable it became. For whatever reason. Shit. I think I did miss. I don't know what happened. Did I shoot the arrow that didn't have a tip on it or something? I don't know. Anyways, I don't like to tinker. I like to set my bow up to where it's shooting really, really well and then keep it like that. And do things like lock tight down the bolts and stuff like that to make sure that nothing comes loose. And the less I change, the less it affects me mentally in terms of it gives me less anxiety about my setup, and more importantly, it gives me more of a emphasis on focusing on what I'm doing back here rather than what my bow is doing in terms of equipment functionality. A lot of times I will be I will intentionally start focusing on getting a good release, and usually that fixes all my problems, whether it's a left shot, a right shot, lower, too high. And usually if I'm shooting off, it's go back to getting a good release, and usually I can bring all of those inconsistencies back to the center, and I don't even have to move my sight or anything like that. That's just what helps me. You guys do whatever you want to do, but I have found that tinkering with stuff, especially moving your sight back and forth and being like, oh, I'm hitting right today, so I need to move my sight left. I have found that if I'm doing that, it is what's going on back here instead of your equipment malfunctioning. And you moving your sight to deal with your inconsistencies is only going to make it worse, rather than addressing your inconsistencies to get your groups to come back to where they need to be. That is my spiel. That's why I use a hinge. It works for me best. It keeps me honest. I am not perfect with it. I will sometimes punch it, but I usually know when I punch it, and I can usually tell when I've executed a clean shot, and usually that shot ends up exactly where I want it to, or within a couple of inches, an inch at 80 yards. That's just me. That's what happened on Hike to Hunt with my equipment, and this is my first group of the day at 80 yards. As I said, I am not that good, but that's pretty much dead center of the target. So I got to keep working every day, and I'm gonna try to keep banging these videos out too. Beautiful day out here. Look at the mountains. Nice evening to shoot. Not as humid today as it's been. It's gonna get better. Got some exciting things coming down the pipe, and I'm excited for hunting. I'll give you guys an update on that later. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.